Over 16,000 years ago, Alaska was covered by ice 2 miles thick, slowly carving out deep valleys and fjords, like the one we're currently traveling.
Probably one of the most beautiful fjords we've ever been in.
Here, at the edge, life is in a delicate state of balance. Join us on an expedition into what remains of Alaska's great ancient ice.
What you doing?
Just putting some diesel in the tank. We've got a long motor ahead of us today, so yeah, it's about 25 miles down to the Dawes Glacier at the end of Endicott Arm, and we got about half a tank, but we also need to refill the day tank for the diesel stove. So I'm just going to top up the main tank, and that way when we get down there we can transfer some fuel over and we'll have plenty of fuel for the day.
This week's journey begins here, in the Tracy Arm Ford's Terror Wilderness area. Hook firmly secured in all that remains of the terminal moraine of the Dawes Glacier, which for thousands of years stood here carving ice into the Pacific Ocean.
Absolutely beautiful here this morning. This place is giving me West Coast Vancouver Island vibes with its sort of sandy beaches and conical shaped rocks with trees growing on them. It's very like Tofino-esque. It's really, really pretty and very peaceful.
The bay here is kind of situated between the two terminal moraines of Endicott Arm and Tracy Arm. About 10,000 years ago, when the North American ice sheet retreated because all of this was just covered in ice, the glaciers kind of went back up and carved into the valleys here. And at one point, they came all the way down here to the ocean, and this was the main inlet in here. And the big mounds and the sandbars and the shallow sections that we see here are kind of where the ice stopped, and that was where the glacier was for probably a couple of thousand years by the looks of the debris and the deposits here.
Over the last millennia, the ice has continued to retreat, now resting 30 nautical miles southeast of here at the headwaters of Endicott Arm, the end point of today's journey through this breathtaking ocean waterway cutting deep into the mountains.
It's actually a really interesting unknown geological thing, how far and how deep these arms actually go. One day, eventually, the glacier will lift up and reveal the end of the inlet. Who knows how long down the future? It could be in the next 10 years, it could be in the next 100 years. Like, nobody has a clue how deep these valleys actually go up into the mountains, which I think is really cool.
You can't visit Alaska without appreciating the extreme forces that have sculpted the landscape here. Sailing nearly 2,000 nautical miles along its intricate coastline these past few months has left us in complete awe of its rugged, dramatic beauty.
I am absolutely lost for words. This place is incredible.
Stunning dreamscapes created by powerful geologic phenomena. And what awaits us here at the headwaters of Endicott Arm is some of the most incredible Alaska has on offer.
So we've situated ourselves in this bay as sort of a starting point to be able to explore these stunning spectacles of nature. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing over the next couple of days. Just about to haul up the hook here. We're going to fire up the engine, motor out of this bay, and head up Endicott Arm towards one of the most beautiful glaciers in Southeast Alaska.
All right, let's go.
Like most expeditions out here, we'll need to work with the wind and the tides, keeping a keen eye out for all the ice flowing down from the glacier.
I already see a big piece of ice up ahead. Big bird. Another thing we'll have to be really careful about during today's journey, the massive chunks of ice that carve off these glaciers and then get pushed out of the inlets. And sometimes they can be really hard to see. They're just sort of floating beneath the surface because the ice is really dense. There's not a lot of air in it, and so it's sort of like submerged a little bit. So we'll be keeping a keen lookout as we make our way up this channel today. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to anchor somewhere once we get up there. But that's what makes it exciting. Without that, where is the adventure?
It wouldn't be an adventure without a healthy dose of risk and a few unknowns sprinkled in. As you'd expect, the waters in this fjord are incredibly deep, making anchoring options up here few and far between.
I am hoping that we can find somewhere to anchor. I got a few ideas on the charts, although the guidebooks say that there's no anchorages and there's no information on navionics about anchoring down there, but I'm hoping we can pull it off.
Thinking it's a good day for some soup, so I just chopped up some celery and carrots and onions to make a veggie broth. I put the pot on the stove. That's something we've been doing a little bit more of, is using the diesel Dickinson stove for cooking. A little precarious because we are moving and the pot is bigger than the stove, but I've done it before without spillage. Hopefully we'll have success with it again. So yeah, gonna make some broth on the diesel stove and then we'll have some delicious soup later, because it's chilly up here. And it's gonna get colder the further up the inlet we go.
The average summer temperatures in these parts is around 5 to 15 degrees Celsius, with ice floating in the water all year round, making the ambient temperature of the boat pretty chilly. In order to dry it out and keep warm, we've been leaving the stove running when we're not sailing. The way the weather was looking today, it wasn't likely we'd be sailing anytime soon.
It's kind of really overcast. Rain clouds come by every so often, so we go from being cold and windy to being wet and then cold and windy, which is fine. You just got to keep a good eye out for the icebergs because there is plenty around, but they're very spaced apart, which is awesome. Cold wind coming off the glacier though, it's all outflow, so we're going dead upwind. You probably could sail in it, but it'd be very light and there's ice everywhere. I'm wearing my balaclava because it's cold and that's keeping my head nice and warm. But yeah, we're just tucked in, keeping an eye out for ice and slowly making our way up the inlet.
Cloudy afternoons usually mean no wind, but emerging from the mist, majestic mountain vistas and stunning waterfalls. A moody mysteriousness that the Pacific Northwest is so well known for.
It's beautiful out here today. At first I was kind of disappointed because the weather wasn't like ideal, meaning it was like raining and drizzly, and I was like, we're gonna be wet and cold just motoring up here. But actually I think it's perfect. Like the moodiness is really adding to the majestic mysteriousness of this place. Every now and then a mountain will reveal itself out of the clouds or an iceberg comes out of the mist, and it's sort of like you don't get it all at once. You just get little bits of it over time, and I feel like that really adds to the experience.
Continuing up the fjord, more and more ice lay on the horizon, flowing out from the glacier with the wind and the tide. Large icebergs are easy to spot, but the smaller bergy bits and growlers are dangerous because of their low height in the water. So we were keeping a keen eye out and making sure to give a wide berth.
We've seen ice of all different shapes. We've seen an ice that looked just like a swan. Perfect ice swan. The water is so turquoise, absolutely beautiful, and it's just becoming more blue as we continue up the channel. Yeah, it's been a really magical ride so far.
What are you making there, Al?
Potassium-rich potato leek soup. Got potatoes, we had leeks, made some stock. Hopefully it's delicious. Definitely craving warm things on this wet, drizzly day. A side of cheesy bagels. James made delicious everything bagels, baked them on the Dickinson diesel stove the other night. So yeah, we're gonna have some cheesy bagels and potato leek soup.
Absolutely sensational. It's crazy that we're eating soup in July, but this is so freaking good and it's hitting the spot. Like, the further we get up Endicott Arm, the colder it seems to be getting. And this is just like the most comforting, warmest, tastiest. I mean, it smells like Christmas. Like, it's incredible.
The rosemary.
I don't know. Must be the rosemary and the leek and the potatoes, but it's like delicious and carby, and it's got some butter in it. Hits the spot. Really good. We're just arriving here at the north arm of the Dawes Glacier. The north arm of the glacier receded like hundreds of years ago, so we're just kind of exploring around. We've got to work out somewhere where we're going to anchor.
Geologically speaking, this bay is pretty new. When the late John Muir visited here just 100 years ago, the North Dawes Glacier was still calving ice into the bay. Within his lifetime, the glacier had retreated out of the sea and was no longer tide water. A radical shift in a relatively short amount of time. In the glacier's absence exists a newly formed estuary with soft silt that shifts after heavy rains and with each change of the tide. An uncharted area that makes anchoring here pretty tricky.
The guidebook basically says you can't do it. The notes on Navionics, nobody's written any notes about it.
From the charts, we could see that there were some features that might make anchoring here possible. A river running into the fjord with a relatively large and flat shelf that we could potentially dig the hook into. But all bets were off until we arrived to scope it all out.
I see a huge waterfall up ahead that seems to have deposited a whole bunch of sediment around the bottom, so we're going to go scope that out and see with our depth sounder if it's possible to do it there. Some kind of stern tie, stern anchor, sort of steep upslope style anchoring. Can't wait to go see the Dawes Glacier, which we'll probably do tomorrow morning. It is pretty freaking chilly at the moment, so I'm pretty keen to get the boat anchored away, get the diesel stove running, and kind of like warm up for a little bit. This place is freaking beautiful. It's like Yosemite. There's like granite cliffs that just go up into the clouds everywhere. Well, we've arrived up here and the water is really dusty, opaque. You can't really see through it. And that makes it really challenging, and the charts are completely inaccurate, so you have no idea what's going on. I've just been motoring around tracing kind of like contour lines onto Navionics with the tracks, so I can kind of understand what's going on with the shoreline. Looks like it drops off fairly steep in the front, and then it has kind of like a little bit of a bay in here between the river mouth and this waterfall. I think we're going to dump in about 80 feet, and then we'll back it back and set a stern anchor into the shallows, and that'll hold us in position with the hook pulled into the upslope. A little bit of mucking around. This activity sure would be a lot easier if you had forward facing sonar on your boat with the overlays for the Navionics. So if you have that, you know, you're really lucky, because that's excellent for doing this activity with. But we just have a Garmin fish finder and an iPad with Navionics attached, so we really hope that our GPS signal today is somewhat accurate. We also have a Garmin Glow, which makes our GPS signal much more accurate than just the one on your cell phone or on your iPad. But nevertheless, I think we've decided where we need to drop the hook, and we should be good to go for it.
With the bottom contours and depths roughly mapped out, we dumped our anchor in about 80 feet. Then, reversing the boat, we set the hook well in the thick silt before setting up to deploy our stern anchor.
We are just setting up the stern anchor. We set the hook at a scope of 2 to 1 and it's stuck pretty easily, so it must be in the steep upslope. We've just kept the boat in gear, it's in reverse, just pulling against to try to hold it in position while we get this set up. We're just going to toss the dinghy in the water, we'll row out a little bit and then just drop the hook down in the mud. And that way that'll keep us from swinging around into the deep water too much. The boat's slowly swinging out, so I'm going to go drop the stern line over here in the mouth of the river, and then we're going to leave the other end of the line attached to the boat because it doesn't need to be out too far this time because it's a fairly steep incline. But yeah, we're going to put it over there and that way we can pull the boat back in so it stays nice and stuck in the upslope. We dropped the stern anchor and it just immediately hit the mud, so I'm guessing it's only in like a couple of feet of water, which would be above the water at low tide, which is pretty well perfect because when you're setting a stern anchor, you more or less want it to be horizontal with the stern of the boat, because that way you're not lifting the anchor up at all, you're just trying to drag it straight through the mud, and the more mud and stuff that you got in front of it, the longer it has to drag before it comes out, which is perfect. So I'm going to just pull in a little bit of tension on the stern line, pull it up, get the boat sitting straight off the anchor before we let out any more anchor rode. We are anchored at less than 2 to 1, which might seem a little sketchy, but trust me, it works absolutely fine in this context. So we're just going to pull in the stern line here. We'll see where we sit, see what our depths are. We can calculate our minimum depths based upon that, where we are in the tide cycle, and that should give us an idea of whereabouts the boat's going to sit at low water, which is really important because you don't want the boat to be sitting on the mud at low water. You still want there to be water.
There's always anxiety anchoring in these uncharted places. There's the risk of dragging anchor and floating off the shelf overnight, and the fear of being blown onto a lee shore. But without risk, there's little reward. It was all worth it, getting to spend the night in this incredible place.
Good job anchoring.
Yeah, it's always such a bit of a runaround trying to get that set up, but we've been running this diesel stove while underway so we could duck down here and get out of the weather and warm up, and it's actually really nice to like just come down after doing all that and the boat already is like warm and dry. That's pretty spectacular. But I think it's brewski time for a beer to celebrate our arrival here in Endicott Arms. It is absolutely spectacular. We're anchored like literally behind a waterfall.
Cheers, guys. It's a beautiful day. Cheers to the adventure.
Yeah, I'm excited to get up to the Dawes Glacier tomorrow, go explore it. So cheers guys, thanks for watching. Well, we're just packing up the stern line. At about 11 o'clock last night, when the tide was just reaching high slack, Brucey let us down and he dragged off the shelf and our boat swung around and he went into deep water and I hauled it up with the winch. Which is totally fine. Like, when we mapped out this anchorage, I left us the options of either stern tying, or I mapped out an area that was big enough to swing at about 200. I would say though that there's so much fresh water coming in from the head of this inlet, from the big river, from the waterfalls, from the other multiple waterfalls around, that the outflow of the surface current is actually pretty strong, because the boat didn't even swing around when the flood started to come in. It's always been hanging off in the freshwater outflow current. It's really not too much of a trouble, because I doubt, it's pretty unlikely that we would get a wind blowing in the inlet this way and pushing us back. So I wasn't too worried about that. We're really settled at the end of a low pressure at the moment, so there's not much air movement around here. And you'll start to see the clouds lift before you've seen the inflow winds pick up, so you'd be a little bit forewarned. Predominantly from the ice, you're getting generally outflowing wind anyway from up in here. So yeah, that just holds us on the shelf, and the little outflow would just blow you that way, and the likelihood of suddenly getting big gusts coming back this way, I think it's pretty unlikely in the middle of summer overnight. Not at least with this much cloud cover. If it was completely clear and sunny on a warm day, maybe you might get a bit of an inflow, but you just have to play it by ear as it happens. Depends on the weather. Well, we've got the hookup out of the ground now, and we're just heading out to go see the Dawes Glacier. Weather's nice, hasn't started raining yet today, but that might change. So let's go stick our heads around the corner, see what's going, see how far we can get up between the ice, and go check it all out.
Making our way up the fjord, the temperature dropped and the density of ice around us increased. Ahead of us, a wall of frozen water.
We are just approaching the glacier, and it looks absolutely amazing.
The mass of ice that makes up the Dawes Glacier begins with the Stikine ice field at the Alaska-Canada boundary and flows with gravity like a slow-moving river at a rate of 15 feet per day, down to tidewater here at the head of Alaska Arm.
One of the most beautiful fjords we've ever been in. Spectacular granite carved walls that come straight down into this turquoise water. Absolutely insane. This glacier is stunning, and it looks like we're going to be able to get the boat pretty close to it. Within a safe distance, but like a lot closer than we've been able to do with the last two glaciers we visited. So stoked. This is epic!
Approaching the headwaters of the fjord, the surrounds took on otherworldly forms.
This granite mountain actually looks like the surface of the moon. I've never seen anything like that before. It's just so bubbly and textured. I don't know how to describe it accurately, but it's very unreal.
Granite's like out of this world. It's wild. The texture is just mind-blowing. Like, how did it get to be that shape?
Continuing to the terminus, we were completely floored by our surroundings.
I am absolutely lost for words. This place is incredible. I've not ever seen a place as beautiful as this. The glaciers, the waterfalls, the color of the water, the misty mountains, the rugged peaks. It's just insane.
It has to be one of the most magical places I've ever seen.
behold primordial time itself. An otherworldly landscape shaped by the extreme forces of nature. An impenetrable wall of glacial ice towering hundreds of feet high and half a mile wide, reminding us of an ice age that began over 1 million years ago. Across the millennia, condensed ice flowed down from the mountains, grinding granites into flour. Today, the glacier is actively retreating, calving massive icebergs into the sea as it continues its century-old unveiling of the dramatic fjord it has sculpted.
The depths here are off the chart. It's hard to even fathom how incredibly deep the valley goes here, and like mind-boggling to think how much of the arm is still covered by ice. Like, how far does Endicott Arm before it finally comes up above sea level? Crazy to think about, because the big ice sheet that sits up on the mountains here, these are the arms of it running down into the ocean. And how far do these valleys actually travel up into the mountains?
The enormity of the wilderness and the extremes of this landscape, it's otherworldly, and we're so insignificantly small, and it feels so surreal, sublime, absolutely sublime to be in a place of this magnitude. Oh my God.
This is so cool. This glacier is absolutely stunning. It's magnificent, and it just towers above the water.
Hundreds of feet tall, the Dawes Glacier runs for 20 miles up into the mountains to an elevation of over 5,000 feet. Multiple tributary glaciers feed into the main tongue, like streams into a river. At its terminus, towers of ice-like skyscrapers. Thunderous booms of ice breaking apart, and the white noise of trillions of ancient air bubbles escaping as its face melts into the sea. You can't help but marvel at the sheer magnitude, the powerful energy, and you're left with a sense of wonder and grand appreciation for this incredible planet.
Well, we made it!
We made it to the head of the Dawes Glacier!
It's absolutely incredible up here. We are absolutely mind blown.
This is out of this world. I don't even feel like I'm on planet Earth anymore. This is just mind-blowing. It's just the most craziest. I didn't think that this kind of landscape existed, but here it is, Endicott Arm, my new favorite place in North America.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. There are no words for this, but thank you for coming along on this adventure with us. We really, really appreciate all of your support. And if you feel like supporting our production, head over to our Patreon and maybe consider, pledging a little, supporting us. I think, for a couple of bucks a month or per creation, however you want to do it, your support is appreciated because we could not do this without you. And we love coming up here to these beautiful places, filming them, and putting it all together for you guys to enjoy. So, you know, if you want to help us out, head over there, support. And if that's too much of an ask for you, then that's all right. Just like the video, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and we'll all see you all next time.
Thank you for being on this journey with us. Some of you have been with us since the very beginning. Really, just a few years ago when we bought this little boat and didn't know how to sail.
Oh, you're way over, you're way over, you're way over. Just straight.
Straight.
But got this crazy idea in our heads to sail it thousands of nautical miles and put it in front of a glacier. And here we are. It's all feeling pretty surreal. So thank you for sharing in the joy of this with us. The next couple of episodes are going to be pretty epic as well. So if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss those. Like the video and write us a note down in the comments if you appreciated this one, because it was a bit of a beast to edit. It only took us a month. Thank you to our patrons for their continued generosity in making these videos possible. We're doing our best to keep these ad-free and entirely crowdfunded. So if that's something you'd like to support, you can join our amazing community. We keep our friends over there pretty well updated with where we are in real time.
Ahoy, patrons!
G'day, guys.
We're here at the head of Tracy Arm.
If monthly subscriptions aren't your thing, but you'd still like to support this production, you can make a one-time donation to our PayPal, link in the description below. So thank you for your consideration, your support. You guys are legends, and we'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.